All right, we're 3 days into the government shutdown that President Trump said he'd be proud to own in the name of border security, and there are no signs of movement in the negotiation. It's a partial shutdown that history shows won't just hurt government workers. In 2013, after a 16-day shutdown, Congress had to sign a check for $2.5 billion in back pay for furloughed workers. That's workers who weren't working. The government lost $7 million in revenue at national parks, $1 billion a week in lost IRS enforcement collections. This time around, there are about 350,000 furloughed, fewer than in 2013, but the shutdown is guaranteed to inflict some pain with each passing day. Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Lloyd Doggett, who is back home in Texas. Congressman, good to see you. Thank you for being with us.
Good to be with you, Ali.
What does the end look like for you in this one? Do we have to wait until the Democrats take control of the House in January before this ends?
Well, unfortunately, that may be necessary. I think the numbers you just gave sum it up correctly. It is very unusual when Donald Trump emblazons his name on something that he will tear it off. But that's what he's done in light of those numbers with reference to the Trump shutdown. So proud to claim it initially. But now that the pain becomes obvious, particularly here on Christmas Eve for over 800,000 families that don't know what will happen to them in the future, though based on prior experiences you indicated, eventually many of those people will be paid for doing nothing during this period of uncertainty, unfair to them and unfair to the taxpayer.
Let me ask you about something that Republican Senator Tim Scott said earlier on Fox today. Let's listen together and then we can talk about it.
The emphasis is not on the wall. The emphasis is on Trump. We cannot govern this country by who's in the White House,
right,
whether we like them or not. We have to do something very different in this current environment,
right,
which is to realize that this is not Trump's wall. This is America's border security, and we should fund it because that is in our best interest.
So this is a complicated piece of messaging that Democrats don't want border security. In fact, Democrats are offering $1.3 billion for border security. The president wants $5 billion because it's a wall.
Yes, I think that everyone wants to be sure that our borders are secure, but the amount of money that the president proposes to waste on this, the $5 billion, is really just the down payment. He envisions tens of billions of dollars for a wall that even many Republican experts say is not going to be productive. I really do believe that the focus on a wall, as Senator Scott referred to not being able to govern, that's what we have right now with President Trump. When you look at the events of recent days, the real wall is the wall he's building around himself, excluding anyone, disrespecting General Mattis and others, anyone who doesn't agree with him. It really is a wall based on fantasy, but it is a wall that can do great damage to this country far beyond our borders.
Congressman, you follow things having to do with Saudi Arabia quite closely. You've actually led an effort to try and end support for Saudi Arabia's war in Yemen, which is now the biggest humanitarian disaster on earth. This morning, quite surprisingly, in his lots and lots of tweets, the president tweeted about Saudi Arabia and Syria. He said Saudi Arabia has now agreed to spend the necessary money to help rebuild Syria instead of the United States. See, isn't it nice when immensely wealthy countries help rebuild their neighbors rather than a great country, the U.S., that is 5,000 miles away, thanks to Saudi A. There's so much about that tweet that's interesting, including the fact that Saudi Arabia has basically wrecked one of its neighbors, Yemen. But this is kind of interesting, given everything that's happened in Saudi Arabia, given the fact that it's come to light, the role of the Saudi administration in the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, that somehow Saudi Arabia made it into the president's tweets about Syria.
It's really just appalling that he would say anything about the Saudis of this nature, because they are directly responsible for the murder and dismemberment of an American resident, a journalist. Every few minutes, another Yemeni child dies as a result of the Saudi war crimes that are being committed in Yemen, the poorest country in the Middle East. And they've even tortured women who are Saudis because they wanted to drive. It's a regime with which we have nothing in common. And again, Democrats and Republicans came together in the Senate to put a stop to this war in Yemen so that as we enjoy Christmas, we are not at the same time using our tax dollars to promote starvation of Yemeni children, but the House would not take it up.
Why do you think that is?
I think that President Trump is really tied to the Saudis. He says they've been good customers for his businesses. He likes to sell them the very weapons, the Made in America bombs that are being dropped on Yemeni children. And he seems to really admire these foreign thugs, whether it's there or in the Philippines or elsewhere. I hear he's talking about going to Turkey with another troubling leader. I think he would like to be the kind of leader he sees abroad, someone who by executive fiat can order walls and other things and be rid of anyone who disagrees with him.
Not have to be troubled by...
Not the Christmas spirit.
Not have to be troubled by mere legislators like yourself. Do you think this will change when Democrats get into power, and particularly these issues about Saudi Arabia, about the Middle East?
I certainly hope so. The Saudis have a powerful lobby. They lobby Democrats and Republicans. They're very bipartisan in that. But I hope we will see early next year a resolution disapproving of our tax dollars being used to send more weapons to the Saudis, given their murderous regime, and that overall we will re-inject human rights as something that is a basic American value, that they're universal, and that just because Trump pursues a hug-a-thug policy doesn't mean that we in Congress shouldn't reflect basic American values.
Congressman, good to talk to you. Thank you, and have yourself a Merry Christmas, sir.
And Happy New Year to you. It will be happier with a Democratic House.
Congressman Lloyd Doggett of Texas. We'll be right back. You're watching MSNBC.